Okay, it says it's recording. So uh, let's see. I guess. Well, my buddy doesn't have the animation yet, so we'll.
Asshole.
Yeah. All right. So we'll just start it. I'll count down in my head. Welcome to Top Shot NFT. I'm your host Jason, joined always by my boy Lennox. Lennox, what's going on with you today?
Not much, man. A little disappointed that the drop didn't go like we wanted to, but what can you do?
For those of you that are new to this, which I'm sure most people that are going to find our channel are learning about what NBA Top Shot is, what NFT is. That's what we're here for. And this being episode 1, we're going to kind of break down exactly what happened today. It was actually a very disappointing day. But the landscape for NBA Top Shot is, I mean, it's just on fire. Like it's one of those things where literally like a week and a half, my boy here, Lennox, calls me up and he's like, "You've got to check this out." He kind of explains it to me, and every day since then, like we've just been on top of it. But even more so, you just kind of learn more of the intricacies that make it so appealing. Why don't you explain kind of you have a jump on me, but just kind of explain to a layman that what is NFT and then how is Top Shot?
So I think that the NFT portion is less obvious because the blockchain runs on the Dapper Labs system on the Flow blockchain, and that's really all in the background. So what I like about this particular project is for the new user, you're not even aware that there's a cryptocurrency-esque thing going on in the background. So I really appreciate that. And to the uninitiated, I think the easiest explanation is this is a virtual basketball card. So what's happening is you're taking a moment, I believe they call them moments, and it's essentially a 15-second clip of a moment in an NBA game. And what they're doing is they're sequentially numbering these things in order, and they're minting them on the blockchain so we can verify original ownership and things of that nature. So it's really some exciting technology going forward.
So, like I said, like Linux is kind of my expert, even though there's certainly bigger experts out there. But he was kind of my my lead, my Eskimo, if you will, into this. We've known each other for almost 20 years now. We have a love for basketball. Linux was a college basketball player. I was a high school basketball wannabe college basketball player, and that's what's kind of drew my attention. Like I've always been interested in the crypto space and Bitcoin, of course, and we see what's been going on. Like today, it's currently around 36, 37,000. We were talking about it, years ago when it first hit like 20,000 and then went down, and it's certainly volatile. But none of that really interests me. What interests me more with Top Shot is I love basketball, and I can't fathom what a crypto, what a Bitcoin is or even looks like. But I can watch a moment, and that's what they are. They're called moments on Top Shot, like, and it's basically like a virtual card. And I can see like a Zion, dunk or a LeBron 3 or whatever, and at least I've got some interest in that. What's also interesting is I think that the most people, especially when it comes to crypto, unless they really deep dive like you have, they're not going to know where the trends are. But in Top Shot, you can kind of watch the games, watch the seasons progress. You can see who's on the rise, who's on the decline. I mean, we just saw like James Harden, for example. One of my first packs that I opened, I pulled a decent James Harden and I sold it, and literally did it like next day he gets traded, and then he has it post a triple double, and that same card was like almost, at least 2, maybe even 3 times the value within a few days. And that's kind of cool because I'm not a big fantasy sports guy, but I keep up with basketball. So I can watch basketball and really kind of have like a vested interest. so if I was the layman, like how would you explain, you know, the people that are adopting, especially Top Shot?
I think the easiest explanation is you're buying a virtual basketball card. You're buying something that can't be duplicated. You're buying something that has unique ownership and it has authenticity. So, one of the big issues within the physical card market are the counterfeiting. Yeah, so you have a PSA 10, Kobe card, and then it comes out that hey, there's a same card with the same serial number that's already been minted, and you have the issues of well, do I actually have an authentic card and how do I verify that? How
Right.
do I verify how many cards were actually released in a particular run? So, let's say we have our 2021 top series. Well, how many, LeBron golds are there? So I think that the blockchain technology in regards to recording and authenticity and showing scarcity is amazing. And it's something that's well needed in the card space. Now, I'm a guy that I'm constantly looking for different NFT projects to invest in, right? So Jason will tell you, we try to get on some nifty gateway stuff. So we're in the crypto art space. We're in the Bitcoin origin space. We're in anything that has promise. We want to dip our toes in and kind of review it. But at the end of the day, the sales volume, the amount of interest, the hype behind NBA Top Shot is simply amazing right now.
Right. And it is funny too because um, like we'll kind of discuss eventually like our background and who we are. Um, but we are, one word to describe us is certainly like entrepreneurs, and any one, what I call a entrepreneur, like someone that's living at home in their parents' basement, like aspiring to kind of be their own boss, but they're not really doing it yet. And then you take baby steps to get to that point, even if it's taking a job or whatever. But like a guy like Gary Vaynerchuk, who has been pumping the traditional card space super hard on his social outlets and almost like leveraging it as a way of like, this is a business. What's fascinating with the traditional cards, which I grew up, I mean, I had all the Shaquille O'Neals, like I have Charles Barkley's rookie card, like in my cabinet now. Um, we all, in the 90s, everyone thought like those cards were going to hold value and like that was going to be like my retirement and I could retire early. And it didn't quite work out that way. Back to like Gary Vee, who's been pushing the traditional. I feel like what sets Top Shot apart and it's going to make it, it just makes it really interesting to me is that you don't have to hold on to a card. Like you don't have to wait for a card to improve in value. But the best thing is that it's so easy to unload. Instead of having to send the card off, instead of having to wait in line at Target, you can do this all from your basement, if you will, or your laptop. And then as soon as you get the card, you can unload it and put it on the marketplace. And that's what's so crazy is we were discussing earlier on the phone, like so the world of Top Shots existed really less than a year, um, and in the last month, it's the marketplace has done more revenue. What was it, 70% in the last month, and the last week is like 33% of the total revenue in the whole year. So like in the last week, what was the numbers that it went to?
I'm
Like
gonna butcher it. I could think from the next episode. I'll definitely have the numbers.
right, but it was something
It
silly like a hundred
was
thousand to like
impressive.
600,000 in like a week, and
Exactly.
that's kind of what was so disappointing for us today is that we're so if there's a what's called a Discord and that's kind of like just a chat room and just reading what's going on in the Discord is hilarious because like people are literally like getting mad like there's been glitches on the website and they're like I need my crack for the day you know and we've even had that issue where we're just kind of fiending for packs. And so today was supposed to be a big pack drop, and there's been issues because the website's just getting so popular so quick they can't handle it. The developers are doing what they can, but you know this big pack was supposed to drop today, and the whole site crashed, and they basically just posted that they need to fix it before anything else can go. And so it's under construction, and it is still in beta. I think that's important to note. And who knows, like whoever's watching this video 2 months from now, this might not even be, a thing. And that hopefully that's the case, but it's really frustrating.
It is, but it has legs. Do you remember the first time I bought my first pack? Do you remember when that was? I want to just for the marketplace, just give a real world example in regards to some of the movement on these cards.
Uh,
Was it a week ago? Was it a week and a half ago? How long was it? Well, when did you get your pack?
so that's what's kind of funny when you're in this space, like this virtual sphere. It feels like that was like last year, honestly. Um, so we bought uh, the Deck the Hoops specialty pack dropped, I want to say January 7th. And so now where are we at? It's the 18th now. So it's been 11 days since I bought essentially like my first pack. But the night before that, you had contacted me and kind of told me about it. And so I'm guessing, what was it, maybe 2 or 3 weeks ago that you bought your first pack?
I probably bought my first pack only 3 or 4 days before you bought your first pack. So I wanted to see how the technology worked. I wanted to see what it's like to open a pack. I have experienced the Dead Mouse release on wax, so I wanted to compare the Dapper Labs interface to the wax interface, and they're favorable. I think wax is probably a little bit more intuitive right now, but I definitely think as time goes by, Dapper Labs will get that, especially with some of the big names coming up. But to Jason's point, I opened my pack. I believe I bought 3 or 4 packs, but I noticed I got this LeBron James card. I'm like, oh my goodness, this is amazing. Like, I'm not a big LeBron James fan, but to pull a LeBron James card in one of these packs, I thought was interesting. So I look at the value of my card, and again, we're talking about 13 or 14 days ago, and it's a $50 card, right? I take a week from now, it's a $100 card. And then today, I pull up that same card and it's selling for $300. So the thirst and the passion and the energy behind this project, it's very real. And like Jason said, the Discord is simply on fire with all the people who can't wait to get their hands on this particular product.
And it's really kind of top to bottom. So like there was a Ja Morant that's garnered the most headlines. That's the record now at 34K sold. And the guy, I can't remember who the guys. I didn't even know who he was, but I guess he's pretty influential, if you will.
Yeah, they're huge DFS guys. They're definitely well known in that
Right.
space.
So, anyways, to drop 34,000, and it's funny because if I tell anybody else about this, and I've tested it. Like I told my parents, of course, my parents are like in their 60s. They were like, "What are you talking about?" I've talked to people in and around my age, and their first thought is, "Why would you pay 34,000 for a video clip you can watch on YouTube?" Obviously, not understanding about the blockchain. And then I even talked to my buddy who's like 22, who actually collects cars and plays like all the, Fortnite and stuff, and he hadn't even heard about it, which is really interesting. So it's kind of like if you're watching this video and it's relatively new and not like months away, then like this is an interesting time. And even though we're not the earliest adopters, like we really are. Like if you're getting involved in it, a few months from now, I think it still holds. But it's so crazy right now. So Lennox told me buy this pack, so I bought a base set, which is like kind of like their introductory set of cards. But is base set the first edition, if you will? Like, so that's the base set was the first release, even though there's the specialty packs. Am I right on that?
So we bought the second release of the base pack. So there's like the base 1 series and the base 2 series. So we're on the base 2 series. So there's a whole other base set that preceded us from getting into the space.
Okay, so but it's fair to say, like I think like base set is kind of what wets your beak. Like you
Absolutely.
you get to see what the cards are. The packs are relatively cheap. You're not guaranteed anything, but that's not what you're really kind of chomping at the bit for in this community. The two major places is the marketplace, which is basically like their version of eBay solely for this, and then the other is these drops. And so the first drop that we were a part of was called Deck the Halls, and it was a Christmas drop. So it released these specialty moments from Christmas Day basketball games. And lo and like it was, this is how crazy it was. Like, and again, 2 weeks ago feels like a year ago. So um, Linux tried to get in, I tried to get in. The server crashed. We only got one pack, and lo and behold, in that pack, the first card was the LeBron Deck the Hoops, and so that was obviously like, what's interesting is like there's going to be a tons of players, and if you're a basketball enthusiast, like you're going to be like Zion, Ja, Luka, but the gold standard right now, especially in this space, is LeBron James. Like you're just not going to lose value in having a LeBron. So we get this right away. That LeBron sold for $2,000. Like probably, what was it, like an hour after it dropped?
Not even an hour. Not even an
Right.
hour.
And and then like the most recent sale was a few days ago, and it was for 10K. And the one that we have is actually a higher serial number, and that's what's kind of interesting too. Kind of explain what the serial number means.
Well, it's a numbering system, and as I understand, and I could be wrong on this, but I think that the serial number is determined by who opens that particular pack first. So for instance, when we buy our pack, I think you want to open it as fast as possible because that determines your mid number. So as an example, I have a pack and Jason has a pack, and we both have a LeBron James card. If I open my pack before Jason opens his pack, I'm going to get the lower mint number than he does. Per the guidelines at NBA Top Shot, each run has a certain amount of cards per run. So I believe LeBron was 85 total runs. So you have potential from 1 through 85. And obviously, the most valuable runs are going to be anything in the top 10. And one thing that appears to be a focal point here are the actual players' numbers. So they're actually, I believe LeBron James is 23. So if you pull that 23 LeBron James, 23 of 85, that's also going to be a really valuable card.
Which is funny because Luka is 77, and so far all the moments that have been released for Luka were less than 77, and so it wasn't like his first card, but like there was a recent one that was his first jersey card, and so that has a special thing. But it's funny because it's the 77th card in the serial, but because it's his number, then it could be equivalent to the same price as a top 10. Now the number one is always going to be the most expensive. That was the Ja Morant was number one, right?
It was number one. Yes,
right.
It was.
So now, and this is what's so crazy is that like we don't. It's such an evolving thing, and nobody has it solved in essence. Like if you've been a card collector, cards have been around, for 100 years. So you can have an education and pretty much know everything. This is changing so much. So there's an interesting thing. I don't know if it's right that if you open the pack as soon as possible, that mints your card, because now they're kind of promoting like holding on to packs. And I've seen like other videos where people held on to packs to open them so that they could do a video. So I don't really, but it's not certain, right? Like I don't know which is.
That's a good. I'll do more research on that. I'm really not clear. I know other sites do it that way, so it could be different here. I'll find out.
And to the point too, it's like they can change stuff and how they're doing it without really letting us know. I mean, they don't have to let us know. That could have been something that like they were doing initially, because they had never mentioned about holding on to packs and selling. That's literally something that I just read today about holding packs. And I all these things will make you lose sleep at night, because I waited to open our pack, and it's kind of like, well, if I was waiting so we could video chat and open the pack together, but it's like, well, crap, that took 5 minutes. So if I hadn't waited 5 minutes, would that have changed the number? Instead of being a 12, would it have been like a 6? We don't really know exactly. I think that it doesn't really matter like when you open it. especially if that's something going forward where they are going to allow you to kind of hold packs, because no one would hold a pack and sell it later if it meant like reducing the serial number.
Makes sense.
But again, that could be something that makes sense now, but maybe that wasn't what they were doing initially. So we get this LeBron in Deck the Hoops, and again, like it's already sold for 10,000. I think the number one or the high, I don't know if it was number one, but the highest one on there is like 100,000, which, you know, some of the prices are a bit loony, but at the same time, you know, people are certainly willing to buy it, and there's some heavy collectors. You know, that's one thing. Like, I think that there's different types of people that come to the site. Like, I'm not looking necessarily like super long term. You know, I don't like. I think they're cool, but you know, I don't need a computer full of cards to just spend all day looking at, you know, at moments. You know, I think, but that's part of the hobbyist, and it's I don't know, man. Like every moment of the day, like I'm kind of checking, you know, at least when the site's working well.
Now, I would say outside of some of these DeFi projects, you're not going to find a market as aggressive and as fluid as this NBA Top Shot market right now. It is amazing to see just how fast it's changing. You know, the as of today's January the 18th,
Yeah.
and the site's been down for essentially 24 hours, going on 30 hours, and
Mm-hmm.
I imagine whenever the site opens back up, there's going to be such a rush of buy pressure. It's going to be amazing. Like, it is. Now is definitely a time to check out NBA Top Shot, just simply because of the volume. And if you're a sports person, if you like basketball, I mean, it's amazing right now.
I think that again, I go back to like the lack of knowledge. Like, I think there's a ton of people like that are in the traditional card space that are walking into this, um, and think that their knowledge that they have in that space, you know, gives them a distinct advantage potentially. But I think that there's just so many ways to win, and it's still, again, there's an evolution that's going on. Again, you know, who knows? Like, you know, what if Top Shot just pulled the plug on the whole thing? Like, where do those moments go? Like, where does all the money go? You know, like on the account. There was my background in Linux is, I guess I would call you I call you a semi-professional, but I was a former professional poker player. So I played professionally for about 7-8 years, and you know, it, it interests me on that level. As far as this, like looking for edges, looking for leaks, like, you know, there's certain people that are buying up like a bunch of the cheapest cards and holding them. Then there's people that are buying like the $10,000, you know, like a $10,000 card and thinking it's going to be 100,000 next year. Um, it's there's a very big there's a lot of game theory kind of involved in it. Like, you know what I mean? Like, you can get kind of deep into it, and but at the same time, for the casual person, like, you can just have fun with it, you know, and just dump your money into what you like. So
As all podcasts say, this is not a financial advice. This is just two
yeah,
guys kind of sitting back having a conversation. But I'm of a strong opinion that even some of those cards with the highest run, I had a card that I'm really interested in. It had the 5,000. Now it's bumped up to 7,500, and I wouldn't be imagined if the cap supply bumps up to 10,000. But I do believe in this growing marketplace, and interest being what it is, I think there's value in those cards. So granted, you know, you had something that was capped at 5K, but it bumped up to 7,500, and it bumped up to 10,000. Like, it may seem scary in the moment, but from 6 months from now, in my opinion, I think those are going to be some very strong plays in the future.
and this is our first podcast. This is more of just like kind of an introduction to it. In the future, like, we're definitely going to deep dive. I would say that we have a pretty extensive knowledge of basketball. You know, I'm not going to say I'm Matt Berry with, you know, fantasy sports level or anything, but we've watched enough. And what's so fascinating is that you see it in any kind of discussion or anything that we've read, whether it's someone else's YouTube channel kind of discussing it, just card people in general, like the traditional, and they'll say, "Oh, well, Luca had a bad game last night. His cards are dropping like in prices today." If there was ever a market where that was true, like you could actually, I believe, kind of capitalize on that. Like that could kind of, John Morant's actually kind of interesting because he was injured, so he was kind of out of this limelight. So I imagine that like his cards didn't improve as much, but now that he's come back, even though it's been literally like 2 days, like his cards, especially how he's playing, like will influence it. James Harden is a great example. Like literally he gets traded and has a triple double, and all of a sudden like he's back to like people are as hot on him as they were, when he was with the Rockets and actually cared about playing for the Rockets. There's definitely some players. I think it's important that we like just kind of talk about like what players we think might be on the come up. I don't, again, like this, we're not trying to give financial advice. We're not sponsored by the NBA or Top Shot. Like every podcast, it's two guys talking about something that you're passionate about. And if we can, expel some wisdom and help you guys out, that would be cool. We'll do like the whole, like if you write comments or questions, you can send us questions and all that stuff, and we'll try and get to those on future podcasts, because we're definitely it was funny the way this kind of idea came up. Is like we've just been on the phone just talking about it for like hours, and it's like, why don't we just record what we're talking about?
Yeah, seriously.
So what do you think is like, I think the biggest issue is that people are kind of scared, right? Like, and it feels a lot like early days of Bitcoin. Although because of Bitcoin, I think that there's definitely a little more confidence in where this is going to go. I mean, what are you thinking right now as far as like, again, like it feels, it's been like 2-3 weeks and it feels like we've been in this for like 3 years.
Well, when it comes to the cryptocurrency space, I think anybody will tell you that your money is made. Your money is made where the confusion is. Your money is made where the doubt is. Your money is made when you're willing to kind of go out on a limb and experiment. So I think the Top Shop is kind of like that. So you're like, if you're coming from the physical card market, let's say you're familiar with Star Stock, and I think Star Stock is kind of the physical component, and this is more the digital component, but it's definitely worth taking a shot. It's kind of hard to understand, like, why would somebody see value in a 15-second clip that I can find on YouTube? It's very hard to understand, and it kind of dates you, right? You're like, oh my gosh, how old am I? I don't understand this, and I don't think I'll ever understand it. But if you're able to, let me actually take a step back. So during the last outage, Jason and I were talking on the phone, and I'm hanging out in the Discord, and one thing really caught my attention, and I'm like, everybody was complaining as to what time it was and when the new release was coming out. And I would say the majority of the chat was talking about what time it was in their particular time zone. One thing that people have to understand is this thing is super international. I mean, there are people from all over the world who are accessing this site at all times of night. And I think it's leading to the issues that they're having in terms of server capacity. So when it comes to volume, we're not talking about US volume, we're talking from volume throughout the world. So that in and of itself, I personally believe that you can't make a bad purchase right now. You can't purchase a bad base pack. You just can't, because there's so many people who want to be a part of it, who want the volume. And as I said before, this is the ground floor. I think it's super interesting. How about yourself?
I mean, with everything comes risk, and I always tell people, if you don't want risk, just put your money in some portfolio and pull your 5% interest a year and, you know, just go to bed and sleep at night. You know, there's a lot of people that invested in the safest market in the world in 2007 in real estate and like got murdered. You know, there's no guarantees. And so if you are going into the space, don't go in it thinking that I'll use the poker analogy. Don't play poker expecting to be on the World Series of Poker tour next year. You know, play because you enjoy the game, and then if you find that you can have an edge and could eke out like, you know, profit, great. But anybody that runs into this, and it's kind of funny because it reminds me of fantasy sports, and not only as a professional poker player. Before that, my actual first career, I was a sportscaster for 7 years, and I don't bet on sports at all because my 7 years I covered like the Falcons, the Panthers, Clemson, South Carolina. I covered like big sports. I had inside information, if you will, and I still couldn't predict the outcome of the games. You know, so if you are a basketball enthusiast, enjoy it, but don't for 1 second think that you can predict, you know, with certainty. You know, Ja Morant projects to eventually be an MVP candidate player. I don't think there's any doubt about that. But all it takes is one bad twist of an ankle or come down wrong, and that guy that bought the 34K Ja is, you know, is feeling pretty sick. You know, so but you know, important thing is I think this is really fun and exciting, and if you can make money on it, you know, that's just a bonus. But there also is, you know, don't put your life savings involved. You know, spend what you can afford to lose. But what we're also saying in that same breath is like it seems too good to be true right now. So it's always, especially in any kind of investing, it's musical chairs. You know, you just don't want to be there when when and miss the last chair. You know, and I think we're a ways away from that. But as somebody that grew up at one point, that can say before the internet, like I just don't understand how, again, like a 15-second clip could be worth, you know, $10, let alone 10,000 or 20,000. But that's the world we're living in now. You can accept it and jump on board, or, you know, do what you've been doing, you know, and play it safe. The art stuff is, you know, we put NFT in this because that's what these are. It's just sports related. But, you know, you had a big win with the dead mouse thing. We tried to do one the other day, and you showed me some of the art, and you know, I'm a dogs playing poker type of art enthusiast, you know, and I don't get it, but you don't have to understand why someone values something. You just have to look. And we said it earlier on a phone conversation, and it was made famous in the movie War Dogs. You make money between the lines. You know, it's if you put the effort and kind of deep dive and really embrace the community. The website's actually kind of difficult to navigate, and so that can frustrate you. But if you get past that, and to your point about the confusion, right?
Yeah. I'd also recommend folks check out cryptoslam.io. It's a much cleaner way to digest sales and what things are going for, and kind of what's hot. So I would definitely recommend that.
So, I mean, since we are kind of going to talk, you know, like the key component is how are these players doing? There's so this drop that didn't happen. It's supposed to happen tomorrow, but we'll kind of see what goes on. There's 5 limited edition cards, 5,000 of each, and they're called Cool Cats. And it's interesting because they're not like the best players. It's not like Luka or Giannis or LeBron. It was Rui Hachimura. I can't say his name. Rui, uh, Devin Booker. I can't. Who else was it?
Rui, Devin Booker. It was the power forward that used to play for Miami. I can't think of his name, but that exactly, exactly.
Those are
Basically,
the type of guys. So,
exactly.
but they have what's called challenges. So that's what's interesting is these cards I have no interest in as far as like collectibles, and they're not big names. Devin Booker is an all-star and pretty amazing, but um, what's interesting is this challenge that they present, and so it's very fan friendly. If you hold all 5 moments at one time, then you're eligible for a specialty card, and there's only a handful of those that'll be rewarded to those people holding these moments. So that's where it's kind of like the excitement of pulling a rare card is one way to win, but then there's also this, these challenges so that you can accumulate cards. So that's what made it interesting for me, because when I looked at like these specialty cards coming out and Devin Booker's like the highlight, and I don't even know who the other guys are. It's like, well, I'm going to snooze on this. I can skip this, but there's still so much value, even in the base set, which has probably the most prints of any moment for each individual. But who's to say where they're going to go? And they keep the prices keep kind of going. Who do you like? Not necessarily who do you like. Like, I don't want your sleeper picks, but what do you think in terms of not just what it's doing on Top Shot, but like a player that like has some upside. Like, and I'll give you an example. Like, LaMelo Ball's interesting to me because we all know he's super hype and he's actually playing good. Like, I don't, if I get it, like, obviously I'll be happy, but I don't feel like a LaMelo Ball improves that dramatically. Like, I don't know, like, what he's going to be able to do. Whereas if a player, like, what that kid, Denny, the Israeli kid, I think from
Plays for Washington.
Yeah.
Right?
But
Yeah.
he was like a late first or late lottery pick. Like a guy like that's like really on nobody's radar. Let's just say, like, he starts out at the end of the bench, and by the end of the season, he's averaging 20. Like, so you get that card and it's like $1 or $2, and then it could like 20, 30x, or, especially if he has some kind of specialty card, you could end up having a huge upswing. Is there any kind of, like, do you get what I'm going at with that? Like, what are you thinking?
I do. It's kind of a volatile mix. So you're trying to find a player that's going to be exciting, right? So I'll give LaMelo Ball credit in that I think people want to watch him play basketball because he's exciting to watch. He's a great passer. He has great fundamentals, and his floor vision is amazing. And I think he's a guy that's capable of producing a fantastic moment or a fantastic 15-second video clip. So you ask yourself, who can I find that are like that? Obviously, Zion's a human highlight reel. Last night he went absolutely, he had a monster's dunk. Like, if that turns into a moment, that's going to be a really sought after card. I mean, that was amazing. The same thing with John Morant, an amazing athlete capable of producing these incredible moments. So to answer your question, what am I looking for? I'm looking for young guys on a bad team right now, right? So what I'm looking for are, who's on Detroit right now? Who's on Orlando? What happens when they're out of the playoffs and it's time for the Orlando front office and the Cleveland front office to say, hey, what do we have in these particular guys? Those guys are going to get a lot of run. And I think there's a lot of value because right now nobody's paying attention to anybody on the Orlando bench or anybody deep on the Cleveland bench. So I'm looking for players in situations like that.
I think in part two, it's like, so this goes to where it's fun for me, because I have a passion and interest for it. But it's also like very advantageous. So I'll give you a good example. THT for the Lakers, like he played awesome in the preseason, and like he's really putting up numbers for the Lakers, but he really doesn't have a role. Like they're pretty much set in their in their first 7, 8 players. And they've actually there was an article out today where it was saying that they were kind of holding him back intentionally because they don't want him to raise up so much. Um, that seemed very odd to me, but at the same time, they don't have to play him 20 minutes a game because they're actually relatively deep. And then the other side is like maybe he's getting a lot of his points in his run because they've been blowing out teams. So if it was closer, would he really get that much playing time? But there's a great guy. I mean, he was I want to say a mid-second rounder that unfortunately he's on a rookie contract, but I think he might be on like a 2 year. If he was a second rounder, I don't think he signed like a 3. So now you might be able to move him, and for sure, like he's going to be able to sign for a bigger contract. Whereas if he was like a first rounder, his contract, he'd be, that's why like with Kuzma, it was very difficult to trade Kuzma because he was on that rookie deal. So they were getting him for nothing. They did give Kuzma the extension. So it's kind of like finding that player, maybe even like a TJ Warren that, I think he wouldn't have been that popular had it not been in the bubble. Like if he was doing what he was doing at the end of the regular season, but because it was the bubble and like there's a lot of eyeballs on that, like he got a lot more publicity. But like, does he take that next turn? He's does he become like a superstar level? I don't know that he does, but he's like right there. Like in finding, um, you know, who the best example of this is actually Siakam. Like, because I feel like Siakam was before their championship was like I was like, who is this guy? And then with the championship run, he really he got a lot of he got his chance. And then when Kawhi left, he really got his chance. Now, unfortunately, I think he's like falling backwards. But like that's what I'll call it. It's like find my Siakam.
Well, I think there's a lot. I'm partial to the big guys. I'm 6'8", 6'9" in real life, so I do know that it takes those big dudes longer to kind of grow into their bodies and understand the NBA game. I think a perfect example of that is Nikola Jokic. When he came out, I believe he was a second round pick.
Yeah,
I believe he was. Yeah, I believe he was a second round pick. And it just takes time. You look at the guy from Houston, Christian Wood, same kind of deal. You look at Hassan Whiteside. You look at there's so many examples of these big guys that it just takes them a while. I think James Wiseman has just tons of potential too. It's just going to take a couple of years to find that.
And I think this draft more than any year has the potential to have just like you could easily have a guy in the second round be the guy of the draft because they didn't have the opportunity to really work these guys out and really get in-depth information. I think typically with the combine and the personal workouts, you typically know who your top 5 players are going to be, but sequentially down, like really anybody that was drafted like 10th or less this year, there's an argument that there's a couple of them that if they had gotten the normal amount to work, I'm favorite my boy Cassius Stanley from Duke that went to the Pacers, and he's not getting a lot of run there. But I think if he had actually worked out, there's no way that he goes in the 40s. He would have easily been an early second round, probably first round pick because he's just so athletic. But he didn't get to. He only worked out for a handful of teams, and he didn't. Did they even have a combine this year? I don't even know.
No, it was all virtual Zooms and things like that.
And you had no time. I mean, the off season was a month, whereas before all those teams, I remember I covered as a journalist the 2001 NBA draft, and I was stationed in Atlanta, so I was covering the Hawks, and they had the third pick in that draft. Um, they were marching in players in and out, in and out. And that was a year like Kwame Brown, Sagama Job, Tyson Chandler, Lauren Woods, Shane Battier. Like, I want to say they drafted Powell in that draft. I can't remember who they actually ended up taking, because I know it was like Kwame 1 and then Tyson or Curry 2. I just remember Curry and Tyson both got drafted by Chicago 2 and 4. And I think, I think they got Pau Gasol, who was nobody. Like, Pau didn't even work out for him. Like, I think they just saw a video on him or something. But again, this rookie class, and there's not a lot of rookie moments. There's not a lot of rookie players, that are out there to kind of pick up. I haven't seen a lot, besides.
There's definitely more coming. I believe releases in the future will take care of that.
And that's one thing to point to, is that, not every player has a moment. So what's interesting is, like, maybe that moment comes like, a month or two from now. And that's almost kind of like the rookie card, because everybody is a rookie card, essentially, because it's their first, whatever the first card is of that person is kind of like their NFT rookie. So that's pretty cool too.
Where do you think we are on time?
What time?
Just in time, and time length of the podcast or length of video.
Oh, I think we've been so entertaining that they'll want to stick around forever. I was going to try and go 3 hours, but we can. We don't have to do that. We've got. I will say this, like, I don't know how long like our typical podcast will be, but there's information that's coming daily. We're going to try and do at least once a week, and then if there's like a big drop, maybe do like a specialty show specifically for that drop and unload, do some pack openings, show you what we've got, what we pulled, maybe discuss some of our transactions. But I think for this one, we've kind of done a pretty good job covering it, like a good intro to what it is, who we are, in essence, just two guys rocking beanies, loving the NBA. What's funny is he's in Chicago, I'm in LA, and we're both freezing in our own respective cities. It was like 55 this morning.
Oh my goodness. Really? Oh, that's terrible. I think it's like 21 outside right now.
Yeah. So what's actually interesting, like, just to kind of give any viewers like our credibility in the basketball space. So we've got LA covered, you're in Chicago, and we're both from North Carolina, which, in my opinion, North Carolina is arguably the best state for basketball of all, So we've got it all covered. We just need someone to pop in. We need ties to New York, and we'd have the whole basketball universe covered.
Or California too. I think California's doing okay these days.
Yeah, LA. What would you say is the best basketball state?
I like to do math and study and figures. I can't speak to it off the top of my head because I just don't know. I'd have to do the research.
I think New York wins the argument just because they have like so many historically great players. Kareem's from New York. Stephon Marbury. Like, there's just so many. But if you're doing state, we have Michael Jordan. What's funny is New York claims him because he was born in Brooklyn, but we have Michael Jordan. I actually played in Michael Jordan's high school too, Laney High. So yeah, I've always loved ball. I wish I could have played a little longer than I did, but don't we all? But we can now live in the virtual space, and I'm actually kind of thankful because this has kind of reignited me and given me something to kind of be passionate and excited about. I didn't really fall in love with fantasy sports, but this is pretty cool. So I hope you guys are excited. And I don't want to sit there and put any guarantees, but trust me when I say this, like you're gonna want to tune in, like click the subscribe button, your notifications, all the typical YouTube and podcast things. But if you want to kind of stay up to date, like we're gonna try and bring that to you and bring you a little bit of entertainment and basketball knowledge. And you know, I'm not saying it's here to stay forever and ever, but just grab a board and get on the wave. It's moving, right?
Yeah, yeah, and I just thank everybody for taking a few moments out of your day to listen to us squabble back and forth.
Oh, there's going to be so much more to come, and we're going to try and get maybe even some guests. There's some cool people that we've listened to, and who knows, maybe we'll get some guests. And it's crazy because even like Tyler Hero is talking about it a lot. Once the players kind of get it, and I'll just leave you with this little tidbit, like the fact that you haven't seen this as a commercial yet, that's a big sign, and it's still in beta, but that's a big sign that we're on the uptick. Once you start seeing commercials and it becomes mainstream, that's when the floodgates will be open. And hopefully they get their web server developers up on it and are preparing for this tsunami that's certainly about to take over. So with that, I'm Jason for Linux. We appreciate you tuning in. And again, follow us on hit the notification subscription button and leave some comments and questions. I'll respond to them, and we'll try and put them on the air and try and cover it. There's so many questions, and we'll do our due diligence for you guys. So thanks.
Thank you.